Welcome to the today's session on the DAX topic. In the last session, I covered the basics of DAX and its fundamental concepts. Very basic concepts we discussed, and also we discussed about the internal workings of DAX engine. Today, we will continue our exploration by diving deeper into the various other DAX functions and its features. Our agenda for today's session, sum and SUMX function, very simple one, right? And next one is the average family of functions. And then importantly, you should be knowing the calculated column and measure and calculate. This is very important topic in DAX. Next one is the evaluation context. This is very, very important. So if you wanted to master DAX, you should be knowing what is evaluation context is all about. This is the very fundamental thing, right? This is the fundamental building blocks for your DAX. Okay. All right, let's get started. Now let us move on to our first topic, sum and SUMX function. Sum and SUMX function. Okay, the sum function, here is the syntax for the sum function. Okay, it will add all the numbers in a column. This is a very common function, sum function. You take any programming language, any statistic tool, the sum is a common function. Even in Excel, I believe all of you might have must have used the sum function. Using sum function, we can aggregate, we can perform aggregation, which is nothing but, for example, you have a column by the name of sales or quantity. You want to compute the total quantity. You need to apply the sum function on the quantity column. Okay, it is basically useful to sum the values of a column or table. Okay, and next one is the SUMX function. The SUMX function, this is the one extends the sum function. Okay, and it extends the sum function. But here it iterates over the table or an expression. It iterates over the table or expression, which one the SUMX function. Since this function ends with X, this is called your iterating function. Okay. As I explained in the last session, the iterative function will iterate row by row. Okay, in your data set. Okay, so this is an example for sum. Sum, right? Sum of the column, let's order quantity figure. It will give you the total units or total quantity that we sold it. It gives you the total quantity we sold. But what is SUMX function? Since SUMX, this function ends with X, it's an iterating function. It's an iterating function. Iterative function. Okay, it's an iterative function. The first argument is supposed to be a table name, and followed by that, you can specify either the column name or the expression. In this case, I've used the expression. The expression is I've taken a product of the quantity by price, or the price by quantity. I've taken the product of this one. This is my expression. So in this case, what happens? It goes each and every row of your data set, and it takes the product of these two columns. It goes each and every row. Okay. So SUMX is an iterator function. Unlike sum, the sum is capable of performing row by row calculation. And then it adds all the row-wise results of the iteration of the given expression. Okay, finally, right, it goes row by row, and it applies this. This expression gets evaluated every row, each and every row, and then it applies the sum on this column, total revenue. Okay. So this is how it works. The SUMX, the first argument is your sales, and second argument is your expression. In this case, either you can use an expression, or simply you can specify sum of quantity or sum of unit price. In this case, what happens? Look here. This expression, since the function ends with X, it iterates each and every row. First, it goes to the initial row, and then it picks up the unit price, and then it multiplies the unit price by the quantity, and then the sales amount in the sales amount column, the result of this one gets stored here, and then it goes to the next row. So row by row operation performed by your SUMX function, hence it is called as an iterating function. Okay, so SUMX is an iterating function, and sum is an aggregator function. Sum is an aggregator. Sum is the iterator function using SUMX also. We can, it does the aggregation. Like SUMX, you have various other aggregation functions are available, like max x, min x, average x, and so on. The average related functions, we'll take a look at it a little later. And the next one is the difference between sum and SUMX function. What is sum and SUMX function? Before that, I'll just show you here how this function works. In Power BI, look here, where is this sum function? I just select this visual. This is what my 1, 2, 3, right? This is my chord visual. I'm going to expand this. And if you scroll down here, sum M, if I click on this, you can see that sum, very simple one, right? Total sales. It gives you the total sales. Okay, that's it. And the next one is the SUMX function. The SUMX function, I've used a filter condition. Don't do the sum of the entire rows, or all the records. For all the records in a data set, don't do the don't compute the total for the units sold. Instead, take the subset of the data using filter condition. Okay, so for those transactions where we made the sales more than 8,000, for those records alone, you compute the total on this column. It's pretty simple. Okay, and apart from this, for example, if I go here and I have sales W04, and I can also use the SUMX function here. Here, what I'm going to do is, okay, here, instead of using here, I can use it in my measure. I can use it in a measure. I'll show you that one also. So for that, I'm going to copy paste this one in the interest of time. I just select this one, and this time I'm going to copy this one. Anyhow, it is not going to be. So how do I create a measure? What are the steps that are involved? Select the modeling ribbon and then go to new measure. Click on the new measure. Step 2 and step 3, in the formula bar, you need to specify your logic or the formula. In this case, I have so many measures and tables are there, and it takes time. And look here, in this case, SUMX, the or M1, I'll say, measure, M stands for measure. And here what I will do is I will do one thing. Here I'm going to say sales W04 is the table name. And then the second one is my Puja, I'm yet to start. Okay. See, as per the agenda, I have not yet started. Look here, this is the agenda. First, we will understand some function. Okay. And in the interest of continuation. Okay. And then I will cover the measure. Okay. Measure will follow by this one. Don't worry. Okay. I'll call. Okay. Sales W04. Here, what I'm going to do, sales W04. And here, yeah, so ideally I should have started measure and all, but if I start measure up front, it'll be like a theory, right? You will get confused. That's the reason why I'm doing it in different way. Puja, okay. Yeah, sales W04. One way you are correct. Ideally, I should have started with measure. The reason why I'm doing is if I start the theory part, I have mix of people, they'll get confused. So quantity into list price. Look here, in this case, I can use a filter condition also here. Or in this case, what happened? It iterates to the entire table row by row, and it goes each and every row and picks up the first row. It goes to the first row quantity. It picks up this, the first record. In the first record, it picks up the quantity value, and then it takes the product on the list price. So likewise, each and every record, it goes and picks up these two values and it does the multiplication. So here I am going to press enter. That is very important topic. So when you create a measure, when to create a calculated column, when to create a calculate table, we'll come back to that. Because these are very simple functions. We'll finish it up and then we will jump in there. Okay. So EXP1, yes, I'm going to remove this one and I'm going to put this one. So look here, this is the big value, right? So to a million, it is in millions, are all Ks, because the table these two measures that I used it against a smaller table, in this case, a bigger table, slightly bigger table, our sales W04 table. So this is what the totals is. So in this case, so what is happening here? The SUMX function, it goes each and every row, and then for each row, it evaluates this expression, or it computes this thing, right? It takes the product on quantity and price for each and every row. And then finally, it applies the sum on that. Okay, so you get this one. So you might be wondering, row by row, we are doing it here. The SUMX function is doing row by row. How come you use it in a measure? Okay, Pooja's question was very good. So that we will discuss it little later. At this moment, you understand what is sum and SUMX function. Sum, you can use sum function on an individual column. You just think that way. Quantity, sum of list price. Okay, so sum is not, it is not making sense, right? If you add the list price, but I'm just for the sake of illustration, I'm saying it. Okay, sum of quantity, sum of sales. You can use it on a, you can use sum function on an individual column, but whereas using SUMX function, you can use more than one column in the expression. Okay, but in the case of SUMX, it's an iterates in each and every row. It's a row by row operation. It performs a row by row operation. Okay, now you understood what is sum and SUMX functions. So not all the situations, the sum is helpful. There are situations we may have to use some expression in the sum function itself. Is there any feature that is available? That is the reason why they introduced something called SUMX function. While you perform sum, you can also evaluate an expression row by row. That option also they've given it. So sum is an aggregator function, or using sum we can do the summarization. It's an aggregator function. Summarization, aggregation, all these terms are same. The sum function adds every value in a single column and returns a single value. Okay, it is capable of doing addition of all the values for a given column. That's it. Then what is SUMX? SUMX is capable of performing row by row operations. This is an interview question they'll ask you, definitely. What is it in the case of DAX? Most of my students, right, they pose this question. And here, okay, the sum is an aggregator function, and SUMX is an iterator function. Using SUMX also, we can do aggregation, fine. Here, this is an important statement. All the aggregators are internally inside the Power BI engine or iterators. So now you got confused, right? So I said earlier, sum is an aggregator function, SUMX is an iterator function. But behind the scene, the sum function also getting translated as a SUMX only behind the scene. This is the important difference between sum and SUMX function. So what is happening is, I just write it here. Let's say you are using sum is a DAX function in this case. Sum of sales underscore W0. This is our table name and this is our column name. According to us, we are writing only sum of sales. Okay. But behind the scene, what happens? This one gets converted as a SUMX function by the DAX engine. Okay. And then it puts sales underscore W04, comma, sales underscore W04, and then sales column. It is getting, transferred something like this. Okay, so that is what is happening behind the scene. Now the question is, in that case, why should I use sum? Better, I'm going to use SUMX. Instead of having two different functions, it's confusing. Can't I use SUMX for sum also? Yes, you can use it. It is up to you. Instead of, here simply specify the column name. That's all. Here you don't have to give the expression all the time. Okay, it is not mandatory. Instead of expression, you can use this column name itself. Okay, but behind the scene, this is what is happening. Now the question is, then why two functions? This is called syntax sugar. Syntax sugar. So developer friendly. Syntax sugar is kind of developer friendly. You don't see, you just assume that if you have to use this function, what you have to do, you need to first specify the table name, comma the column name. But in this case, simply specify the column name. You don't have to write so many lines of code, right? Lengthy code you don't have to write. Simply you put sum of serial. This saves time, right? It's a developer friendly. Hence it is called a syntax sugar. Okay. So the sum is also, that's what I mentioned. The sum is an aggregator function. Internally, it get translated as a sum in the iterator function itself. Okay. But in the case of sum function, you can use only one column. You cannot use more than one column, or you cannot use an expression you cannot evaluate an expression like how you can do it in sum function. So this is the difference between these two.